Oh hey, look who came to join us. Just as I hit record, someone decided that he wanted to say hello. Yeah, you just wanted my company, didn't you, dog? Oh yeah, this is actually the first time I've actually revealed the fact I actually have a dog on this channel. But yeah, this is my dog. His name's Bo. Say hi, Bo. Yes, Bo, I love you too. So yeah, this is my dog. And I think he wants to hop down now, so I'm going to put him down. And he's getting pretty heavy, so I'm going to put him down now. There you go. That's a good boy. Now, on with the video. Woo! What is up, everyone? Today, I am feeling fantastic because today is a very special day. It is the 5th of August 2017. Oh, and he's decided to lie down. He's lying down against the wall, right next to my feet. That's cute. Anyway, as I was saying, today is the 5th of August 2017. What does that mean? That means that today is officially the 3-year anniversary of my life on YouTube. Wow, 3 years. It's actually really hard to believe I've already been doing YouTube for 3 years. Now, if you pay attention to when I released my very first video on this channel, my review for Mad Max Fury Road, you'll notice that that video was published in February 2016, so that doesn't exactly add up. The reason why this is officially the 3rd anniversary is because while this isn't the 3rd anniversary of this channel specifically, it is the 3rd anniversary of the fact I've been doing YouTube videos as a whole. My very first YouTube video was posted on a YouTube channel I no longer use called Supersonic Corey. It's a 5-minute video called 25 Things About Me, and it was posted on August 5th, 2014. And that was my first video, and now I'm still doing YouTube 3 years later. And I've completely changed. Okay, not completely, but I definitely evolved over the years. And in my opinion, I think I've evolved for the better. So since I've now been doing YouTube for 3 years, I naturally had different ideas on how I wanted to celebrate. For starters, one idea I had was talking about the way I've evolved and how far I've come over YouTube, which is a fun idea, but I might save that for maybe next year or something like that. I also toyed with the idea of making a behind the scenes video where I go into detail about the process I go whenever I make a YouTube video, especially a movie review. But again, I think I might save that for a 100th video special. There's also that Q&A I promised to do about a year ago, but I've never gotten to. But I've officially decided I am going to make that Q&A now since I've now got 300 subscribers. So it's coming, don't worry. But after lots of thinking about it, I've officially decided what I want to do for this anniversary. Now, since I've been doing YouTube, and I now mainly focus on movies, naturally one of my most frequently asked questions on my YouTube channel is what follows. What is my all-time favorite movie? And that is a question I've actually been debating myself with for quite a while. But I thought it would be fun to finally go into my personal top 10 all-time favorite movies. Why? Because I love movies and I love talking about movies that get me excited. But before we get into the list itself, I do want to point out that I do have a couple of disclaimers. For starters, these are not going to be the best movies ever made. These are not going to be movies that are considered like the greats, like The Godfather, or other films that are considered to be like great, well-made movies. This list is going to be about my biased, personal, favorite movies. These are the movies that I love with a passion. In order to qualify for this list, it simply just has to be movies that for size I consider to be good, well-made movies. But more important than anything, these are just movies that I enjoy watching the most. These are the movies that I find the most entertaining, or the movies that affect me in the most positive ways. And they just have to be the first movies that pop into my head when I consider my favorites. The next thing I want to point out is truly making an official list of my all-time favorite movies with a specific order is one of the most hardest decisions I've ever made in my entire life. And the reason why I say that is because I knew what movies were going to be on the list for the most part. I just had a lot of trouble deciding what order they were going to go in. Because every single time I had, okay, I'm very happy with this choice. I know that this is going to be at my number 1 spot. And then I sort of work down the list. And then once I get towards the bottom, and then I feel terrible for having one movie so low on the list, and I instantly want to rearrange it. I've rearranged this list like 10 times before I made a satisfied decision. But I've thought long and hard about it, and I'm now very, very happy with how I've ranked my personal favorite movies. So I want you guys to keep in mind that this list is going to be in ascending order, but I love all of these movies, and so usually if one movie ranks higher than another, usually it's only marginally better. And I've actually been switching movies up until the last minute. But I love all of these movies. That's why they're on the list. And the last thing I want to say before we get into the list is the fact that since I wanted to have some more variety on my list, and I also wanted to make sure people knew what my favorites in different franchises were, that meant that I am only allowing one movie per franchise on this list. Because if I didn't do that, most of this list would be clogged up with Mission Impossible and Star Wars movies. So with each franchise, I had to pick one definitive favorite. And above all of that, before I get into my actual list, I do have a couple of honorable mentions. These are movies that I absolutely loved, and these are movies I felt terrible for not putting on the list. But there were 10 movies I loved slightly more than these movies I'm about to mention, and I felt terrible for not putting them on the list, but sacrifices have to be made. The first honorable mention is by far the movie I've seen the most recently. I only saw it a few days ago on Netflix, and I just watched it because I heard great things about it. It's the 2014 drama Whiplash. Amazing movie. Fantastic film on so many levels. And the reason why I already would have it as an honorable mention is because it's one of the only movies I've ever seen that not only affected me emotionally, but it also affected me physically. Miles Teller also gave an excellent performance and just makes me wonder why he isn't doing more great movies like this. But J.K. Simmons absolutely stole the show. He was intense and he always got under my skin in every single scene he's in. He felt like a ticking time bomb and I didn't know when he was going to explode. But I could definitely see why other characters were afraid of this guy. He was scary and threatening, but at the same time, you could see where he was coming from, and towards the second half of the film, you could see why he was so harsh on his students. But he always got under my nerves, and even when he's being calm and polite and gentle to you, you have no idea when he's going to snap. Like, you could be drumming and going as hard as you can, and he'll go, not quite my tempo. And then you continue going as best as you can, and then he starts nodding his head in unison and starts smiling, and so you think to yourself, okay, so it sounds like he's liking what he's hearing. And then he throws a chair at Miles Teller. Yup, that definitely caught me off guard the first time I saw it. And holy crap, the climax of this movie! I know everybody's spoken about how amazing and intense the finale is, but it's true. When the credits started, I realized I was actually physically panting, and my palms were literally sweating. It was that intense, it was physically affecting me in the best way. Amazing movie. I loved it. But it's just an honorable mention. My second honorable mention is a film that is much more child-friendly, Toy Story. Toy Story is one of those movies that have actually gotten better for me with age. I thought it was okay as a kid, but it wasn't until I really gotten into animation as an art form and the film industry and really gotten older and more mature and I learned more about the production of this film when I really came to appreciate how great of a film it was. The animation has definitely aged, yes, but everything about the writing and the characters and the story and everything else about this film all remain timeless to this day. In my opinion, it is still the best movie in the Toy Story trilogy. I'm incredibly proud to own it on DVD, and it's one of my favorite Pixar films. Toy Story, excellent film. My third honorable mention is Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Fantastic action film. There's a lot of really great, incredibly fun sequences, like the scene with the truck. Harrison Ford just absolutely kills it as Indy, and it's incredibly well directed. This is by far my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. And I'm happy to say that I own every single Indiana Jones film. I own every single one that was ever made in history. I've got Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Proud to own it on DVD. The Temple of Doom. And The Last Crusade. And that's it. Those are the only Indiana Jones films I own because these are the only ones that were ever made. It's so great to know that there is no such thing as an Indiana Jones 4. My next honorable mention is one of my personal favorite superhero movies, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I love this film. It's incredibly well directed and it just really does the character justice. Tobey Maguire is still, in my opinion, one of the definitive Peter Parkers. I know people don't really like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man because he doesn't make as many jokes, But really, that's more of a problem with the script. But even then, you can still see the humanity behind his mask, and he absolutely kills it as Peter Parker. The suit is fantastic and it's overall really well filmed. Alfred Molina is an excellent actor and he really excels at the role of the villain, Dr. Octopus. It's an excellent drama and I am just as engaged with the things happening with Peter Parker as I am with Spider-Man. And it's got some of the best action scenes I've ever seen in a superhero movie. And I am proud to own it along with the rest of the entire Sam Raimi trilogy on DVD. I love the Sam Raimi trilogy, but I do think that 2 is by far the best one. My 5th honourable mention is Star Wars. The first one. I'm not calling it A New Hope. Do I really have to explain why Star Wars is an excellent film? Not really. The movie speaks for itself. It's such a revolutionary film that literally changed cinema as we know it today. It goes without exaggeration that I don't know what the film industry would look like today had Star Wars never been made. It's got a perfect cast, it's got revolutionary effects that for the most part still hold up to this day, it's got great memorable characters, and it's overall just a really fun film. And the only reason why it's not on my list is because I had the burden of trying to pick one Star Wars film to actually add to the list. And since I'm only allowing one movie per franchise, that meant I realized I couldn't put this movie in the list. I also loved Star Wars The Force Awakens, but for that reason, that was also disqualified. But Force Awakens I also absolutely loved. And my 6th and final honourable mention is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is still, to this day, my all-time favourite Harry Potter film, with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 very close behind. In my opinion, it's got the best cinematography of the series, although I do have to admit Half-Blood Prince had really great cinematography as well. Daniel Radcliffe and Rupert Grint and Emma Watson all absolutely kill it in their roles. The Dementors are still incredibly creepy to this day, and I love the back in time sequence, and there's overall just some really great sequences throughout the entire film. I think in some ways Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is a more entertaining film than Prisoner of Azkaban, but I think Prisoner of Azkaban is the better made movie, which is the overall reason why I consider Prisoner of Azkaban to be my favourite movie of the series. Unfortunately, I do not own Harry Potter on DVD, but I really want to, so I'm really hoping to get the box set eventually. And having the honourable mentions out of the way, let's get into my official top 10 all-time favourite movies. Starting at number 10. Coraline. Coraline is one of my all-time favourite animated films. The stop-motion animation alone gave it a spot on this list. But at the same time, I'm fully aware that this is not the only stop-motion animated film out there. So, why did this stand out from the crowd? The reason why Coraline is still to this day my favourite stop-motion animated film is because for starters, I think the animation is stunning. I can really see that this was a very long and tedious film to put together, and I absolutely love the character designs. But I also think it's by far one of the most creative stop-motion films I've ever seen. I think the only other stop-motion films that have come close to being as good as Coraline are Leica's other films. This film was created by the company Leica, and I loved everything Leica has done. Well, except for Box Trolls, I think that movie is just But I loved Paranorman and Kubo and the Two Strings, but in my opinion, Coraline tops a lot. I heard Leica's making another stop-motion movie and it's going to come out next year, and if that's the case, I can't wait to see it because I love Leica's movies. I think Coraline is incredibly creative. I love the protagonist. I think Dakota Fanning does an excellent job at voicing as Coraline. I love her design and I just overall love how creative the film is. And it was also a very risky move because this is by far one of the scariest PG-rated films I've ever seen in my life. But I have no problem with that. Not only that, but the fact that the movie is so scary to young viewers really makes Coraline's victory at the end of the film that much more satisfying. And along that, we also have an excellent villain, the Beldam, or more commonly referred to as the Other Mother, but I like to call it the Beldam. It's just such a threatening name, and her plan is very dark and sinister for a kids movie, but I love it. She's also incredibly entertaining, which mainly comes down to her design towards the second half of the film, and Terry Hatcher's incredibly entertaining performance. I am very proud to own this movie on DVD, and I love the movie to the point where I even ended up getting the book that the movie is based on. I read the book and I enjoyed the story, but honestly, if I had to pick between the two, I do prefer the film, and I do think the movie is the superior version to the book. The book is good in my opinion, but overall I think there are some narrative problems that causes me to say that the movie is better. So yes, I love Coraline, but I think the movie is definitely a lot better than the book. Love Coraline. Actually, I kind of feel like watching it again all of a sudden. At number 9, we have one of my all-time favorite action films. As you guys know, I am a huge fan of the Mission Impossible franchise. I own all 5 movies on DVD. I have 1, 2, 3, Ghost Protocol, and Rogue Nation. I own the entire set on DVD. The main reason why I love Mission Impossible and it stands out to me as one of my favorite action movie franchises really comes down to Tom Cruise's performance and the creativity in a lot of the action sequences, creating action sequences that I haven't seen in any other action film to date. Scenes like the bullet train scene or the CIA vault scene from the very first Mission Impossible movie, or the opening airplane sequence in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. But picking a definitive number 1 favorite Mission Impossible movie for this list and video was incredibly easy. There's no competition. Out of all 5 movies, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is by far my favorite one. I'm proud to own it on DVD, and I even got the poster behind me. That way, every single day I could look at this poster and be reminded of the incredible Burj Khalifa scene. The Burj Khalifa scene alone gave this movie a spot on this list. I just love how Tom Cruise actually climbed outside the building. What you're seeing on screen in that scene is actually happening. It is not CGI or green screen. And overall, the way it's shot, it's just such a really epic scene, and it's my all-time favorite scene in all of cinema. But the rest of the film is really great too. Tom Cruise gives a really great charismatic performance, and the rest of the action is incredibly fun. And it also has a really fun, entertaining, and engaging story. The dynamic between the rest of the team is also really good, and the main reason why this movie is so low on this list is really just because this is by far the most flawed movie on this list. The pacing really suffers between the ending of the second act and the beginning of the third act, and the villain is rather pathetic. But it's still one of my all-time favorite action films, definitely my favorite in the Mission Impossible movies, and that's why it gets a spot on this list. At number 8, we have my actual favorite Star Wars movie. Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars movie in the entire franchise. It took what made the original movie so great and expanded upon it, which is exactly what a sequel should do. It's darker than the original, but it still maintains the fun, upbeat, uplifting, fun, entertainment value that the first movie had. It's got one of the most revolutionary twists of all time. Characters are full of life and incredibly entertaining. It's got some really great action sequences like the final lightsaber duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. And I also love how this movie had the guts to be a movie where it's a family-friendly, PG-rated movie, but it's a family movie where the bad guys actually win. I don't see a lot of family films going in that direction, but it's definitely a breath of fresh air. Definitely my favorite Star Wars film of the bunch. At number 7, we have one of my personal favorite Disney films, and that is Zootopia. Excellent film. For starters, Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde. These two are amazing together. Not only is the script and dynamic between these two characters incredibly well realized, but Ginnifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman really brought these two characters to life. The animation is absolutely gorgeous, especially with the lighting and the fur. I personally think that this is one of the best looking CG films to date, and I also love how the film has really strong themes about prejudice and discrimination. Throughout the entire film, Judy Hopps is trying to prove herself that despite the fact that she is just a small insignificant bunny, she can take on much stronger, much tougher jobs like being a cop. The film is incredibly entertaining, and there are still some scenes that still crack me up to this day. For example, the scene at the DMV. The scene at the DMV is still as funny now as it was back when I first saw it in cinemas. I am so glad I saw Zootopia in cinemas, and I do not regret buying the Blu-ray. One of my all-time favorite animated films, Zootopia. Amazing film. At number 6 is probably a film that if you've been watching my videos for a while now, it's probably a film that you were expecting to be much higher on this list, but nevertheless, at number 6 we have Inside Out is still, to this day, my all-time favorite animated movie. The main reason why I still consider this to be the best animated movie of all time is really because it feels like a very important movie. It's got one of the best messages that I've ever seen in an animated film. That it's not only okay to be sad at times, but it's actually important for everyday life. It's incredibly healthy to be sad. You just need to know how to handle it. Both stories between Riley and the stories with the emotions are both equally as fascinating and entertaining as each other, and I really love the contrast between the down-to-earth, realistic, contemporary style of the real world with the subplot with Riley, and also the really bright and colourful, really crazy, really imaginative world of the inside of the human mind, like Headquarters. The film is just flowing with really, really clever and really imaginative ideas. I also love how Pixar really took the creativity of finding creative ways of illustrating little things that actually happen inside the human mind. It is very, very psychologically accurate and correct. And some of these are even little touches that you might need repeated viewings to actually spot and notice. The animation is beautiful, and the characters are incredibly well written. The relationship and banter and dialogue and the acting between each of the 5 emotions really allow this film to come alive. And it's also frequently funny. It's just overall a very entertaining film. The only reason why it's a lot lower on this list than I originally had it, because originally this was like at number 1 or 2, and the reason why it's now at number 6 is because there are a couple of little issues I do have with the film. For example, why doesn't Joy just explain the situation to other characters when they are having trouble getting back to Headquarters? I mean, there's a scene where Joy and Sadness got locked up in the subconscious because they were spotted by the security guards. But wouldn't it have made more sense if they just approached them from a distance and explained the situation to them and what's going on? Because if they heard what was going on, I'm pretty sure they'd be more than happy to help out. Not only that, but the whole getting lost subplot and the big massive journey that they take to get back to Headquarters feels like that they go on a tangent of how many times they kept on getting pushed away from Headquarters, and it's an aspect of the movie that gets a little bit more straining upon rewatch. But it's still an excellent coming-of-age story, it's incredibly beautifully animated, and overall it's just a great film. And it's still my all-time favorite animated film. Love Inside Out. At number 5, we have another amazing action film. Die Hard! What action movie fan doesn't love this movie? For starters, this is one of quite a few movies that do this thing that I really find quite fascinating, and that's having a movie that is over an hour and a half to 2 hours long, and yet keeping your attention span despite having the entire movie take place in just one location. There are a couple of movies on this list that do that, and Die Hard is definitely one of them, and I love it. The entire movie takes place in the Nakatomi Plaza, and I just love how it's got a very simple concept. There's a cop that's barefoot in the Nakatomi Plaza. A group of terrorists take over the entire building, and John McClane is the only person left, and he has to stop them. And all hell breaks loose. There are some incredibly fun, entertaining action sequences, and the action is hectic by the end of the film. But what really sells Die Hard for me is Bruce Willis as John McClane. He's incredibly charismatic, and he overall just has a really bright and funny personality. He's incredibly likable, and he's also very rootable because he goes through hell throughout the entire movie. The villains have the upper hand throughout the entire film. And all of my favourite movie quotes have come from Die Hard. Next time you want a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate. Thanks for the advice. Bruce Willis as John McClane just makes the movie thoroughly entertaining, and overall, it's just an amazing movie. If you like action films and you for some reason have not seen Die Hard yet, you are seriously missing out. Now I feel like watching Die Hard again. And at number 4, we have Great Scott, Marty! Back to the Future. I'd feel like an idiot not putting this movie on the list. Not only do I own the entire trilogy on DVD, but I also own the official Marty McFly hat that Marty wears in Back to the Future Part 2, and I have this incredibly awesome model DeLorean. I mean, just having a little miniature DeLorean on my bedroom shelf is just awesome. I love this model. I'm so glad I have it. It's just a prized possession of mine. For starters, the effects still hold up incredibly well to this day. I'm really surprised with how great the effects still hold up. They still look real and they still look like they actually happened in front of the camera. And that is really impressive considering this movie came out in 1985. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd really made this film in my opinion. I think they're the reason why this movie is so iconic to this day. This is one of the most quotable movies of all time. This is just an incredibly fun, relentlessly entertaining film. The idea of the DeLorean going back in time is an extremely iconic idea, to the point where it's actually made me want my own DeLorean. Not just the model that I've got, but an actual DeLorean that you can drive. Now, I know that the joke of the film is the fact that DeLoreans are pieces of junk that keep breaking down, but I don't care, I still want one. And also a really fun, adventurous idea of a teenager going back in time when his parents were teenagers and trying to find a way of getting back to the future. This is by far my favorite sci-fi movie, and I just love this movie. If you for some reason haven't seen Back to the Future, you are doing yourself a disservice. See it. At number 4, we have a movie that is nowhere near as well known as Back to the Future. We have a masterpiece that you may have never even heard of, but nevertheless, I am of course talking about Cube. Where do I begin with this movie? The first thing that hooked me into seeing this movie in the first place was really just simply the premise. I mean, take this for a concept. A group of strangers who don't know each other wake up in a surreal and seemingly endless maze of interlocking cubicle rooms, some of which contain lethal booby traps. And the 6 of these strangers have to work together to find out how they're going to get out, while also avoiding the traps. This film was released in a film festival in 1997 and got a limited theatrical release in 1999. That would explain why this movie went under the radar. It's such a well-made and very suspenseful thriller. This movie had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Listening to the commentary, some of the ideas and ways they made this movie was incredibly fascinating. I love the set design, I love the overall concept, it had me on the edge of my seat. I think the performances are really good, and for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, if you like thrillers, I seriously recommend checking this movie out. And I am proud to say that I own this movie on DVD. I love this movie. Cube. See it if you haven't already. It's a fantastic thriller. Okay, coming down to the nitty gritty here. At number 2. Speed. I love this movie. Once again, I mean, this is another movie where the premise alone gave it a spot on this list. There's a bomb on a bus. If it goes under 50 miles an hour, it explodes. It's a suspenseful movie that had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. The performances by Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock are some of the career best performances I've seen from these actors. The movie has an amazing concept, it's incredibly suspenseful, as well as some genuinely funny moments. It is one of my favorite action movies and I seriously recommend it to anyone that hasn't seen it. It's got one of the most intense action scenes I've ever seen in my life. The scene where Keanu Reeves' character, Jack Traven, is chasing down after the bus in the highway. And there are also other great sequences, like the gap in the freeway. Speed. Amazing film. Alright, now let's come down to this. My number 1 favorite movie of all time is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I absolutely love this movie. For starters, not only in the concept of T-800 Terminators, cyborgs, just overall a really cool concept, but what really makes this movie is really everything. The action is phenomenal. It's got some of my all-time favorite action sequences, like the sequence in the trench, and the relationship between John, Sarah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie has an incredible plot twist that totally caught me off guard within the first 30 minutes. And the movie has some great emotional depth to it between Arnold Schwarzenegger's character and John Connor, or John and Sarah, or Sarah and Arnie. Not to mention, it's just a really fun and a very entertaining action film with a really cool idea for a villain. And Terminator 2 Judgment Day is my all-time favorite movie. So there we have it. Those are my all-time favorite films. But what are some of yours? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be. But until then, yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers!